What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Here in front of me, I have the all-new Mercedes E-Class, an entirely new generation for the 2024 model year. The E-Class has an incredibly long history of icons. Who could forget the classic AMG Hammer? It has a lot to live up to. Let's see how it does. Let's go for a drive. All right, you guys, new E-Class. The one I'm driving today is an E450. You are able to get the entry-level E350. That comes with a 2-liter turbocharged engine, putting out 255 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque. The E450 I'm driving today still has that awesome, really smooth 3-liter turbocharged inline-6. This one puts out 375 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque. Now, what has been added for this generation is the 48-volt mild hybrid system. That is basically an integrated starter motor as well as boost lag mitigation. So it will do some torque fill. We can see that on the gauge cluster here down by the tach. When it's charging, when it's giving us a little bit of torque fill. This is one of my favorite luxury sedan engines, especially if you don't spend the money to get a V8 like some of the more expensive S-classes. So torque fill works awesome, and my favorite part, best part about this engine, it builds. The torque and the power build with the RPM. Yeah, you have a ton of low-down torque, smooth low-down torque, but when you do rev it out, you get more sound and it begins to build. It has character. There's no weird kind of peaky moments where you get weird torque spikes and stuff like that. So you might be worried that the rest of the package doesn't live up to that. Well, the suspension here with this one has not been spec'd with the optional air ride. So you are able to spec, I believe it's about $4,500 Canadian, so about 3,000 USD, which also includes 4.5 degrees of rear axle steering, which after driving this car for a few days, probably would help in parking lots. This is, yeah, not as big or long as an S-Class, but it is still a large vehicle. It's an executive luxury car. That rear axle steer would help immensely around town and perhaps a little bit less pronounced at highway speeds in kind of smoothing out lane changes and stuff like that. But here the standard suspension is great. It just has your standard steel springs and selective damping. So yeah, if I go down here to the dynamic select buttons, we have Eco, Comfort, Sport, and Individual. In individual mode, with this suspension setup, I'm not able to adjust my suspension settings, but in different driving scenarios, it will kind of cater the dampers to both the road and my driving style. So it will kind of stiffen things up a little bit or smooth things out if need be. This is a perfect road run right now to test suspension. I drove the S580 on this road as well. It kind of gives hints of what that car felt like. It is very close to that S-Class, but not quite. Now, the S-Class I drove did have air suspension. It's a night and day difference. If you're gonna go the full length, yeah, I would spec the air suspension if you want that S-Class feel, but compared to the S-Class, you get a little bit more road feel. It's still, I can still use the word waft. It's wafting over all these bumps. So quiet, so smooth. A sign of a great luxury car is when I'm going incredibly fast, within the speed limit, of course, I don't notice it. For an E-Class, yeah, the steering's great. It's got some roll, yet still some road feel when you demand that of the car. Now, all E-Class sedans come standard with 4MATIC all-wheel drive. And that inline-6 is paired with a 9-speed automatic transmission, torque converter auto. If you leave it in automatic, especially in eco, I like leaving it in eco mode because then the 48-volt system will, like it did just there, shut the engine off if we're coasting. I can do things like that also when you're coming up to a stoplight. The engine most likely will just shut off, and the start-stop is very seamless. Usually in all other cars, I turn that off. Here, I don't feel that inclination to. The integration with the 48-volt system, the engine, the 9-speed, it's smooth. I have had a couple moments at lower speeds where I don't know, it's like trying to decide whether to go into first or second gear, and it hasn't been the smoothest off the line, just kind of a couple little hiccup moments, but 99% of the time, I don't notice it, which is perfect. Now, if you opt for the inline six, you do get an average of 25 miles per gallon or 9.4 liters per 100 kilometers. Oh shoot. Now we're up to 10.4, my average over a few hundred kilometers this week. But I did see as low as 9.1, 9.2 when I was doing mostly highway and city. But I've seen tests of people driving this car in the just freeway conditions, getting as high as 35 miles per gallon. So it's incredibly efficient. All right, big changes though in design. The previous generation E-Class, let's be honest, it looked like a C-Class. You put those cars side by side, especially in photos, they look the exact same, which is kind of a shot in the foot to an E-Class owner, right? They've completely redesigned the front bumper here. I think it looks phenomenal. The EQE, not my thing. This, I can get behind. I love looking at this thing. It's got just the right amount of chrome for Mercedes. They haven't gone overboard. It's got the Mercedes illuminated grille with the Pinnacle package here. That's so Mercedes, an illuminated grille. So gaudy. The rear end, just awesome. It has enough of that S-Class look. Yes, those exhaust tips are very fake, but I always have to point that out. It's not anything new, but I do have to point that out. And this one's been spec'd with the optional 20-inch multi-spoke AMG wheels. You can also go up to a 21 AMG multi-spoke. This new generation is slightly larger than the previous generation E-Class. The wheelbase is extended 0.9 inches and the overall length is extended 0.6 inches. Imperceivable, but there is still a ton of luggage space. You've got one button press to fold down the rear seats, a lot of leg room back there. There are screens everywhere. Gone is the one line of climate control buttons, hard buttons for climate control, and you just have one row down here, both for your home button, your next song buttons, but also climate control. So fan speed, a couple button presses away, temperature, one button press away, and then for the rest, you just hit that menu button. It's not the worst. I will say, I did drive the S580, the new S-Class, and I just overall, not having the widescreen is a little bit more user-friendly in my experience. Maybe you're different. Another thing, this center console here looks good when it's closed, not all that functional. This edge here, you could easily, I mean, maybe not get cut, this isn't a Cybertruck, but you could scratch yourself, definitely, and you've got two cup holders. Sad excuse for a cup holder: when you brake or hit the gas hard, your water bottle, or if it's a coffee mug or anything that's slightly taller than a standard small or medium, it's gonna go back and forth. It's gonna move around a lot. Not the greatest. Not to mention, the wireless phone charger is way, way tucked in there. And maybe it's good. You don't have a tendency to want to reach for it as much. But at the same time, if you have two drinks in here, you're not getting your phone. These seats are amazing. This one has been spec'd with the multi-contour seat package, which, yes, includes massage seating, including some like a hot stone massage. Just the names Mercedes comes up with, it all contributes to the luxury air of the car. But aside from the massage, why I would get this seating package is exclusively just because of the side bolsters, the adjustable side bolsters. They do hug you quite nicely. Now, this is not an S-Class seat. It doesn't have as soft materials, but as far as controls go, awesome. Of course, you just have the controls on the side here like every other Mercedes. This one does have heated and ventilated seats as well. Leather steering wheel, leather seats. This one's been spec'd with as well. Same steering wheel as the S-Class. Touch controls on here. Take a while to get used to. If I'm using my adaptive cruise control, which is not standard, by the way, which blows my mind. With that, if I, let's say, turn on cruise control, So right now I don't have my active steering assist on. There's no dedicated button on the steering wheel or down here that allows me to do that. It is only 2 button presses away. I just hit this car here and then active steering assist. It'll find the lines and there we go. But it's not something I can just quickly toggle on and off. Again, buried in the menus. Now this one has been spec'd with the 17 speaker Burmester audio system. This system is great. It has so many options. I'm actually gonna pull over right now so I can show you some of those options. This is a new 14.4 inch widescreen here, about 2 inches larger than the previous generation. And this one's also been spec'd with the super screen package, which allows me to, well, it allows the passenger actually to have access to a bunch of apps, features, YouTube, and stuff like that. It's a lot. Is it worth it for you? I'm not sure. That also comes with this camera up here for selfies and like TikTok. TikTok seems very anti-Mercedes. I don't know about you guys, but 1984, anyone? Big Brother, anyone? Has nobody learned? I feel like putting tape. A lot of people are probably gonna be putting tape over that camera. So you could spec that. I wouldn't. I'd save the money and maybe go for the air suspension. That's just me. We can personalize our sound profile here, which I thought was kind of gimmicky. It's super useful, especially if somebody else will be driving. So we've got bass, intensive, vocal, bright, and you kind of just scroll this around to figure out and pinpoint your exact sound you want. So with a press of a button, you can just come back to it. Awesome. Bass characteristics, neutral, soft, warm, or punch. Okay, sure. It's just, you have to pull over and do all this stuff. You have to figure it out. It's probably going to be kind of a set it and forget it, but it's a Mercedes. I would expect nothing less. 3D sound. Not only do we have 3D sound, 4D sound. They have woofers in the seats. I don't know exactly how they work, but they basically vibrate the seat with the bass, and you can adjust that from 0 to 10. It's hilarious. Does it add to the experience? Sure. Are E-Class buyers actually going to use it? I doubt it. And of course, we have standard features like the 360 cam. Every E450 gets this. Really high res. Don't curb those wheels. Standard also comes this moonroof separated and split into 2. I don't know if that's for rigidity, but it looks good. Allows tons of light in. And then standard, of course, we do get wireless charging. On a side note, before we leave the interior, these vents are all new, of course. And at first I was like, oh man, my OCD is going to kick in because it looks like an infinitely adjustable kind of tab here that you could just kind of leave like that, and you come in and somebody's messed with them and it's just, you're not going to be able to fall asleep that night. That's not the case. When you lower it to the center, it's got a really satisfying click to it to just kind of center it again. It's details like that that keep the E-Class fresh and keep it living up to the name despite all of this complex tech. Like the passenger screen, I don't know how often you're going to be on a road trip and your passenger is one of those who doesn't get car sick watching a YouTube video while you drive. So there is a ton here. There's so many menus. We have all our ambient lighting in here. So many colors options. You can have the colors dance, I guess, with the music. That's a very Mercedes thing, and anybody familiar with Mercedes might not be overwhelmed, but if you come out of most other luxury sedans, you might be overwhelmed. All right, let's finish it off. The E450 here in Canada starts at $84,000 Canadian. This one I'm driving almost fully spec'd out, not quite, $104,000 Canadian. In the US, base price $70,000. As spec'd here is about $90,000 USD. Now, compared to a base S-Class, which just gets a higher tuned version of this 3-liter inline 6, you're saving like $25,000 this spec compared to a base S-Class. And this feels like 75% of an S-Class, but even still, the ride quality is just, it's one of the high points here. The way it drives, the way it feels, the steering, everything like that is just a little bit closer to the road, and you could get some of that road feel through. So subscribe if you guys haven't already. Hit me up on Instagram. We'll see you soon.